Lesson number 1, The Happy Prince by Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde, a famous Irish poet and playwright of the 19th century, he wrote a collection of stories for children in 1888. Read this touching story about an unusual pair of very kind souls. Section 1. There was once a prince who had everything he wanted, so he was never sad. His people called him the Happy Prince. When the Happy Prince died, his people had a statue made of him. The statue was made of lead covered in gold. The eyes were made of blue gems, and in his sword was a big red gem. The statue was put up on top of a tall pillar in the middle of the town. In that country, the winters were very cold. So, every autumn the swallows flew away to a warmer place. That year one little swallow was late. The night he came to town, he landed on top of the tall pillar right between the feet of the Happy Prince. The little swallow was just settling down to sleep when he felt a drop of water. He looked up to see tears falling from the prince's eyes. Children, underline the word autumn. "Why are you crying?" asked the swallow. "Because of all the unhappy things I can see from here," said the Happy Prince. "What can you see?" asked the swallow. "Far away in a small room lives a poor woman," said the prince. "Her little boy lies ill in bed, but his mother has no money for medicines. He will surely die. Little swallow, will you take her the red gem from my swan? It can save her son's life." So the swallow picked out the gem and flew off with it to the woman's house. The boy was tossing about in his bed. Children, tossing about means moving around restlessly. But his mother was so tired she had fallen asleep with her head on the table. Underline the words ill and pegged out, children. The swallow put the red gem beside her. And then he flew back to tell the Happy Prince. "It's funny," he said, "but I don't feel cold any more." "That's because you did a good deed," said the prince. Children, a good deed means a kind act. All the same, the swallow still wanted to fly away to the warm land where his brothers and sisters had gone. So that night he said to the prince, "Goodbye, I am off now." Section 2. "Little swallow," replied the prince, "don't go yet. I can see a young man in a bare room where there is no fire. He is trying to write, but his hand is too cold to hold a pen. And he has nothing to eat. Take one of my eyes. They are made of blue gems." "But I cannot do that," cried the swallow. "Please do as I ask," begged the prince. So the swallow picked out one of the gems from the statue's eyes and flew with it to the young man. He dropped the gem into a bunch of flowers on the table. When the young man saw it, he was so pleased that he forgot he was hungry and went on with his work. "Now I can pay my rent and buy some food," he said. Back flew the swallow to tell the prince the good news. "And now goodbye," he added. "Don't go yet," pleaded the prince. "Look down there. Do you see that little girl? She was trying to sell matches, but her hands were so cold that she dropped them in the wet. And now they are of no use." Children, in the wet means on the wet ground. "Her father will scold her when she gets home. You must pick out the gem from my other eye and give it to her." "But if I do that, you won't be able to see at all," cried the swallow. "You will be blind." "Please do as I say," begged the prince. So the swallow took the blue gem and dropped it in the little girl's hand. How pretty! She smiled when she saw it, and she ran off home to give it to her father. Once more the swallow flew back to the prince. I cannot leave you now that you are blind. I will stay with you, and you can use my eyes to see. The swallow said to Prince. Children, this is the end of section 1 and 2. Now let us see some new words. Tossing about, moving around restlessly. A good deed, a kind act. Autumn, a season after summer. Usually in this season leaves will fall from trees. Ill, feeling unwell. Pegged out, to remove something forcibly. Begged, here asked for something humbly. Pleaded, here requested. In the wet, here on the wet ground. Ran off, to leave a place suddenly or quickly. Thank you, children.